Hello, everybody. Welcome to another VSG Oceanside chat. We actually have a new speaker today. Sometimes we get these repeat offenders. Today, Wendy, it's her first time with us. Wendy Pease, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm hoping she will come back over and over again. This is a new topic for the garage, so we're super excited. Practical advising for sales and marketing. I mean, you can't beat that type of support. A little bit about Wendy. She is the president of Rapport International, and she also hosts a global marketing podcast, and she's the author of the book, The Language of Global Marketing. She served in corporate senior management in both international marketing and in business development, and she's lived around the world. She's passionate about language, culture, and communication. And she serves over 200 plus languages through Rapport International. She has expertise in marketing and customer acquisition, storytelling, team building and hiring. She's also, great at customer discovery and product market fit, and pricing. All her skills are useful for startup entrepreneurs and people who are looking to connect with their customers, connect with investors. Communication is kind of her bag, and we're here with her. I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic, and you can, lean into your bio a little bit more, Wendy. Feel free to share your screen. Super happy to have you. Thanks for being with us.
Well, thank you so much. It was very interesting to put together this presentation, and because when Arcelia and I were talking, it was yes, sales is always a topic that comes up, and what are the nuts and bolts, particularly when you're a business owner and you're responsible for sales. So how can you break it down to the minimum amount of work to do to get the return on it? So I built the presentation that way. I also built it with a lot of words, so you could go back and refer to it if there's something that you wanted to refresh your memory. So it's not all pretty pictures, but I'll try to keep it entertaining for you. So, okay, so the topic is going to be, it's my sales process, and I based it on what I actually do in my company. So you can get the feeling for that. Okay, so this is what we're going to go through is the activity and the stages. So I heard there's a lot of smart engineers in here that like to have formulas. So I did as much as I could as a communications expert to build a formula. And there's 4 steps that we go through in this. There's prepare, there's MQLs, SQLs, and Q&C. So let's just define that so we're all on the same page. So in prepare, it's looking at, getting ready to reach out to your leads. And I'm going to talk about the steps that you go through for that. But leads are kind of the full universe of the personas or the people who might buy from you. MQLs are marketing qualified leads that match certain criteria to get rid of some of the leads, but really target in more of who you want to focus on. SQLs are those people who you've connected with and you know that there's a possible buying opportunity coming in. And then Q&C is quote and closing, and all of that is about following up. The best salespeople are the ones that follow up, because you can swim around in the other stuff, but if you don't follow up, you're not going to make the sale. And then a deal is when you actually close something. Okay, so let's go through prepare. This is our first stage in that. The first thing you need to do is have a clear elevator pitch. And this is anytime somebody says, what do? You and everybody that ends up working with you should use the same thing, the same sentence to describe what you do. Okay, so I'm going to tell you how we came up with ours. Connect is one of our values.
I'm not going to write it if you guys got money.
Heard Adam there. Connect is one of our values, and people we have in there. So we connect people around the world in 200 plus languages with culturally adapted translation and interpretation services. And usually somebody will say, what does that mean? And so then you can go on and get into more of the features or explanations or stories of what you do. But each word in here is carefully chosen for our elevator pitch. Connect is one of our values. And then we want most of the information in our elevator pitch to be benefit oriented. So people don't care what your features are. Your features are the actual products that you provide. So if somebody asked me what I do, I could say we do translation interpretation services, and their eyes could glaze over because they could go, oh yeah, I know a million companies that do that. What they're going to be interested in is what makes you different. Okay, 200 languages makes us different. It's a one-stop shop. They don't have to go multiple places. People and culturally adapted tells them they're going to get high quality and they're going to get good customer service. And so each of those words that we put in there, we took a lot. This takes a long time to do. It's a quick sentence, but it's worth spending the time. So when somebody asks what you do, the next thing you do is you think about, okay, who, I could flip these slides. I could start with the persona and my target audience, or I could talk with what I do and what makes me different. This can be called the ideal customer profile, or ICP. You'll hear salespeople and marketing people talking about that. You can hear persona or target market. They're all fancy ways to say the same thing. Who's going to buy from you? Okay, so when we think down to who our best customers are, we're looking for technical company leaders who want to do global marketing because they want to attract people from international markets. Because if you create a product and you're selling, excuse me, and you want to sell more, rather than creating another product, you can open new markets. So we want to attract the people who understand that, and they want to communicate their benefits and features to people who don't speak English or their native language. Another target for us is manufacturing company owners in the United States that are having a hard time hiring. If they can access communities of non-English speakers, they don't have to teach them how to speak English to be a good employee. Many manufacturing companies hire people, and then they can translate their user manuals. They can use visuals for their safety posters. They can reuse their company handbook. They can leverage telephone interpreting when they need to have a private conversation. So those are people we know need our services. And then medical and life sciences want accurate communications. They're not going to use Google Translate or AI to translate because the liability is too high. So see how we think through, these are our leads. These are the people that we're talking to. And then you want to know what makes you different and what are the benefits. So again, this is well thought out. The benefits to our company is we connect people around the world. We're communication experts. We focus on understanding because that's a big thing in DEI, cross-cultural and cross-lingual communication. So we really want to understand what the source language is or what our clients need. And then we want to deliver and provide quality. So those are the values for our company, and we built our differentiators and benefits around those. So see how it all wraps up to our elevator pitch and then our company values and the benefits. And I highlighted some of the benefits on there because you can see they feed right into that. Then you actually do need something. If you're creating any marketing material, you want to stress the benefits because, as I talked about, they're going to want to buy what problem you're solving for them, but you also have to tell them what you do. So if you go to our website, we talk about benefits and we talk about features because they have to ultimately know what you want to do. So we have a capabilities brochure that wraps those together. Our website wraps those together. If I'm doing a call, I wrap those together. All right, now here's our first formula. When you're preparing and you want to figure out what's the least amount of work that you can do in sales to hit your goals, there's a a top-down view and a bottom-up view. So we're gonna work on this. Okay, I just picked some simple numbers so you could follow along with me. So say I want to sell $100,000 in revenue. So you can take any multiple of this. And the average deal size is 2,000. Okay, if you divide those out, I need 50 deals, if this is my annual goal, to hit that revenue. Okay, so now we work from the bottom up. I take those 50 deals, and if I have to do a bunch of quotes and I close 30, if my close ratio is 30%, that means I need to do 166 quotes. Okay, because I'm not going to close them all. If half of my MQLs become SQLs, remember, as I did the definition, that means I need to have 332 SQLs or 332 appointments to get half of those to want to quote to possibly move forward. And if 20% of my leads become MQLs, like possible people to buy, then I need 3,320 leads. Okay, so this is the formula that you're trying to figure out. I've highlighted all the changing cells here. So as you start doing your sales, you want to track this, because if you can close 100% of your quotes, that dramatically changes the number of leads that you want to put in. Okay, and the other variables that you're going to want to work with is how you're targeting, your ICPs or your personas. If you get better at targeting, the lead number gets smaller. If you get better at messaging, your MQL numbers can get smaller. And if you close better, if you're finding out that you're closing 1 out of 166, and something's going on with that. So if you can pull together this top-down view from how much revenue you want, your average deal size, and then build it up from the bottom, you know exactly what you need to do. Okay. So, was I not? I wasn't. Okay, so then if you know that you have if those are your numbers and you're working down your funnel, 3,000 leads over 50 weeks, say you take 2 weeks for vacation, you need 66 leads per week. And so on your weekly number, you want to have a goal. So depending on what kind of sales, like I used to do relationship building sales, and I would have to visit attorneys' offices. So I knew that I wanted to visit 8 to 12 attorney offices visits. I had to make 8 to 12 attorney office visits per day, per week, to remind them that I was around to send me business to hit my goal. Okay. In the scenario in the funnel that I build, it's 66 leads per week. You can build your lead list at the beginning of the month. 13 MQLs, that's kind of qualifying. But the real decision for what we do now, and I made up these numbers just because I wanted to have round numbers, and 100,000 can scale up or down or whatever. The real number is 6 SQL meetings. That means I want to be talking to 6 people that have the potential to buy. So half of those I can do quotes for now. The other half I'm going to put in a nurture sequence, or I'm going to follow up with them. And that's going to give me 1 deal per week, which is going to give me my 50 deals per year, which is going to give me the revenue that I want. So I know that I have to have 6 sales calls a week. So 6 is my number. All right. So just remember that, because we're going to refer back to that later. Okay. So now that you've targeted, you've put together how you're going to talk about yourself, your formula, you make a lead list. All right. In the middle of the hot ones, you want to think, who are referrals or people I already know or in my network that I can reach out to, because they're going to be the best people that you can sell to. They already trust you. Okay. Who are the ones that are going to buy? That's what we call the low hanging fruit. Then you think about your warm leads. Who are friends and family that are in associated industry that might have introductions they could make to coworkers, classmates, neighbors, volunteers, alumni associations, anything in your network. That's kind of the orange circle here, where they're your warm leads. And then you go to the cold leads. Then you buy lists, if you can see that down at the bottom of the screen. You get a subscription to LinkedIn Navigator and you do sorts by titles and by industry or by company size, or you start leveraging social media, working out to your network. So you want to think about working the inside of the circle first, because that will help spin all the referrals and the selling that you're doing. Okay. So let me pause here. Any questions on that? And Arcelia, I can't see everybody. So if there's people raising their hands or just come off mute.
Yeah. There is one question in the chat. It's not entirely about what you've talked about. Lynn asked, do you also join translator and interpreting associations and let them to market your business, or do you just do your own marketing for your business?
Yeah. So let's go back a slide. Good question. So I attend meetings and conferences where my customers go. So my linguists, like my translators and my interpreters, they go to their own conferences, and we have a lot of people asking to work with us to do the language. So the time I want to spend is going to where my customers are. All right. So I do less where the people who are selling me, but where I want to be to meet them. And there's a good book called You, Me, You by Jane Matson, Jayne Matson. And she talks about networking. She breaks it down because there's lots of skills you can get for going to meetings and conferences of how to do it. Now, the only qualifying thing to that is if my translators and interpreters can help me sell my business, I might go to spread the word around for them. Okay, another question, and I can, at the end, if you have more questions. Do you typically attend conferences as a guest or work a booth at the conference? What do you find more powerful? Okay, the most powerful thing I find is neither guest or booth. The real thing coming out of a conference is the follow-up. Like, I just went to a conference and I got all these cards. And so what I'm going to do with these cards is I'm going to take them, I'm going to put them in A, B, and C pile. And my A's are the ones that I am going to follow up with this afternoon as soon as I'm done with this, because I was just at the conference yesterday. The B's I'm going to put on some sort of nurture campaign. And the C's I'm going to maybe connect with on LinkedIn, so they'll see the content that I'm putting out there. As to whether you do a conference, my decision of whether I get a booth is if I've gone to it before and I think that it's going to be a good place for my ICP or target market to be at, then I'd get a booth. I rarely do a booth at one that I haven't attended to see, but that's my personal preference. And it also depends on your budget. I mean, there's some conferences that can be $10,000, and if you don't have the budget on it, don't spend the $10,000 thinking that you're going to get it, because what's going to get it is the follow-up on the cards. I also tend to like to walk around and go to the other booths and meet the people and go to the sessions so I can learn and meet people in the sessions. And so if I have a booth, I do like to have either a part, if you're a sole practitioner and you don't have a team yet, then partner up with somebody and you can rotate who does the booth and who's off networking, or take a staff member that can collect the cards. But whatever you want to do, you want to collect the information from everybody that you meet there. Oh, good, Arcelia, you put the link to the book in there. Yeah, I know her, and she's a master networker. Okay.
I have a question. So just in terms of the process of lead generation, MQLs, SQLs, and then, closing, what if you were, because I think the hardest part is to recognize how your time is being spent, and if you're spending,
I'm going to get to that.
amount of time spent on each of those and what's appropriate and what's inappropriate. Yeah, okay, great. You're going to get to it.
I'm going to get to that when I wrap this all together. Okay. Marketing qualified leads. So let's talk about that. These are the steps that you need to do to be able to manage this stage of the journey very well. First is get a CRM. Some people will start out with an Excel spreadsheet. And you can use all these different ones. We started with Salesforce. I found it expensive. And then I also had to use Constant Contact for doing our marketing emails. We've chosen to go to HubSpot. You can get a free version to just do your MQLs. When you start wanting to get into using it for selling or for marketing, it can be add-on expenses. But if you're interested in a startup version of, well, first off, if you're interested in a free version, just go sign up for it. If you have a startup and you're interested in the cheap version or you have a discounted version for startup, let me know and I can connect you to that person. But I think this is very important to put these in because this is how you get metrics and you can track what you're doing. So get a CRM or, fudge your way through Excel, depending on how many potential clients. So the next thing is how you connect with them. You've got to do the outreach. And before you even do the outreach, you want to have a goal. Every time you have a conversation, you're talking to them, you're exploring whether they'd be, you're trying to figure out if you're going to help them. But if you know what your goal, like my goal is if I identify them as a lead, then I want to get them to be an SQL and schedule the next call so I can do an intake call, which we'll talk about. Or if they're not buying right now, how are you going to nurture them so they're ready to buy in the future or move on? If you don't think that they're going to buy, don't waste your time. That's salespeople will say getting a no is just as valuable as getting a yes. Those maybes are the ones that kill you because they'll suck your time nurturing them and they may never buy. They may just try to be nice. So if you get a no, thank them, ask them for a referral and move on. Okay, so how do you reach out to them? I tend to like to connect to people. I like to network. I like to phone call. My internal team, my operations team, hates to make outgoing phone calls. So they tend to do a lot on email. So part of this is figuring out, well, the number one important thing is figuring out how your clients respond. Like we had a sales list of lead list of global marketing and salespeople, and the salespeople were always traveling internationally. So we're finding that email is working better for them rather than phone calls because they never pick up. Whereas when we were talking to more product managers at the large product manufacturing companies, they tended to pick up because they don't get many phone calls. And then social media, LinkedIn tends to be our preferred version because it's more business to business. More people are selling on there, so it's gotten harder. These are all the things that you need to be doing. So Arcelia, I'll just preview the question here is how much time? It depends on how effective you are here and how many sales you need to make. The key thing is what's your number? I don't care about this activity, how much I'm doing, because what I'm trying to make sure is I'm getting to my number of SQLs because I know I have to have 6 a week to sell 100 grand. Okay. So if you say, and I'm going to give you some games later on of what I do to motivate myself. So you've got to figure out how your clients are going to respond, how you're most comfortable, and how you can streamline this so you can get your number. Okay. All right. I also find it helps to be prepared. You do it once and then you don't have to think about it. And we're going to talk about how you get yourself out of sales too. So for MQLs, I have a script when I make a call. Okay. We connect with people around the world. So here's my elevator pitch. And then here's the benefit, enabling them to increase revenue and decrease liability. Okay. Elevator pitch, benefit. Then do you have a minute to talk? Because sometimes people will be swamped. And then if they say, yeah, I do, you ask them a few qualifying questions, and then your goal is to get them on that next appointment. Because I know who you are. If you pick up the phone and you're not expecting it, their mind frame isn't in the set to go. If they say no, then you give them the opportunity. This is a little pushy for me, but I think our BDR uses it, which works best for you. I might say, do you have time this week or next week? I know our schedules are busy. So you have to figure out what's worth. But this is a sales thing, and it's really good to use for kids. Do you want this or that? So then their brain is going, oh, well, that doesn't work for me, but this does, or they naturally go to their calendar. So I think it's a smart way to do it. Sometimes I'm a little uncomfortable doing it. If they say, no, I'm not interested, ask for a referral. At this point, you got nothing to lose. They're saying, no, I'm not interested. Is there somebody else I could be speaking with? Some of your best referrals can come this way. And if they say, no, I'm not interested, I'm the person that handles it, find out when they might be reevaluating whatever you want to do, whatever you're selling them, because then you can add them to your nurture and your follow-up list, and they've become a warmer lead. Okay, open-ended questions. This is the number one thing I even go back into forgetting about to use. Do you have time for a meeting? And then I would go into, when we're working with other, there's a typo here. When working with other clients, they tell us that they don't get the quality that they need, or they can't depend on timely activity, or they're confused on where to when to use humans versus technology. So I'd use one of them. I wouldn't use all three. I'm just trying to warm them up. And then I'm trying to qualify them. Are they going to use us or not? So how are these challenges affecting you? You want to find their pain points, because remember, you're coming in to solve them for you. How are you currently handling translation? That might give me a hint about what they're doing. Remember, I'm trying to get them to talk at this point. You do not want to sell. You want to be, one of the best comments I ever heard is the best salespeople have 2 ears and 1 mouth. At this point, you are not even talking, because you want to get information for them. And remember, at this point, when you're asking qualifying questions, you're just trying to see whether they're going to go from an MQL to an SQL. And then your goal is to set a discovery call, so then you can possibly get a quote. Okay, on LinkedIn, we've got a little script, and there's ways to automate this. We've tried automating it, and I know other business owners have talked about it. The most successful is if you're actually doing it, particularly if you're the business owner and they're clicking on your profile and seeing who you are, but you've got to personalize it. So I went to Penn State for my undergrad. I might say, hey, great to see you went to Penn State. Bummer on the football game last week. I got my MBA at Dartmouth. So I might say, hey, great that you went to Tuck. I went there too. Do you keep in touch with your classmates? And so I want to personalize it to something on their LinkedIn. And I am such a pro now at scanning somebody's profile, picking up something I can personalize. You don't need to think about it a lot, just that you read their profile. And then I'm curious, and you ask a question. You always want to ask a question, something that's going to engage them, because if you don't ask a question, they're going to flip. They might accept your connection request, but they're not going to reply to you because you haven't made it easy for them. It's same in dating apps. If you just put yourself out there, but you don't ask a question, nobody's engaging with you. So if there's anybody on dating apps, I'm not on them anymore, thank God, but ask questions, get the engagement. That's one of the most forgotten things. And then you don't sell in the first one. The second one is more direct when you sense the opportunity. So if they send you a nice long response to the question, then you can say, nice to connect, personalize your response, and then you can do an ask, but then, you can do an ask, but then you say, is there any way I can help you? All right. So then you're creating a relationship, not a hard sale thing, which none of us want to be hard sale. But we want to become friends with other people that we can help or they can help us. All right. If you're doing emails, there's 3 types of emails. You've got the cold. We automate it. We use a program called Apollo. It was one of the least expensive ones. It's scripted. We have a series of 4 or 5 that go out. You know, that's a whole other presentation. We do get a low response of it. If we get hits here and there, then we try to get them in as a SQL discovery call. Hasn't worked real great for us. You know, our email boxes are flooded these days, but if you happen to hit somebody at the right time with the right message and you're doing the right quantity, it's, you know, something that you can add in. Warm ones we use to nurture. So say you met somebody, they say they're not buying now, or there's somebody that could send you referrals. We send out tidbits, which are fun, cultural and language tidbits. I put my email in the chat. If you'd like to be added onto those, just email me if you've got any cultural interest. Then we stay front of mind. And so if somebody comes across somebody, you know, a referral, they can go, oh, I can dig back through my email and I can find it. I've picked up a lot of referrals that way, but it does take a lot of work. I had to have a marketing person that could really create those and set them up in our CRM to send them out. And our goal is to edutain, which means educate and entertain. And we've done a good job with that because when I go to conferences, people will feel like they know me because they're getting these emails from the company and they'll refer back to them or say, I just got one from you, or this one was great. So it's a good way if you know, you want to stay in front of your prospects. And then your personal ones. This is where, as a business owner, you want to be spending your most amount of time building your contacts, building your referral sources, customizing it. They don't have to be long anymore. People want to get to the point, at least if you're selling in the US. You know, when you get to different cultures, we can talk about that. All right. So if you have to think about MQLs, I want you to remember, I wish I could take credit for this, but I can't. When you're working with your MQLs, you want to remember to be a happy, helpful human, because then people are going to remember you, they're going to like you, and then they're going to come back to you. Okay, any questions on that section before we go on to SQLs?
I have a question.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Eunice, yes.
Yes. So my question is, when it comes to sales and like the direct approach, do you want to lead them somewhere where they're going to, like, you know, next step, or do you just want to keep it in the air? So when it's ready, they can, I don't know if you're understanding my question.
I am. Excellent, excellent question. Okay, you are always leading them somewhere. Okay, and if you're leading them to a no, that's okay, because no's mean you don't have to spend your time on that person anymore. But when I have an MQL, I'm trying to qualify them to see if they're going to become a sales qualified lead. When they're a sales qualified lead, I want to have a good half-hour appointment with them, and I want to ask them I want to ask them questions to see if they're going to buy. And then I want to get them to a quote. And if I get them to a quote, which is Q and C, quote, and then close. So there's a step along here. And we have a whole documented sales process where we put out marketing and sales steps. I thought it was too complex to get into for today, but it's a good question because you always want to think, what am I trying to get out of this call? And you can tell them at the beginning, you know, you set an agenda of the call. Look, what I'd like to do is ask you some questions, figure out if we're a fit together, answer any questions that you have, and then decide on next steps. Okay, so you always set an agenda when you're going into that. Excellent.
Thank you. Perfect.
Question. Okay.
Also, what does MQL stand for?
Marketing qualified lead, sales qualified lead, are the two. And did you jump in a little late? Because we're recording and I did define those at the
Yeah, I
beginning.
did jump a little bit late. Yeah.
Okay. So definitely go back and listen to the beginning. All right. So when
Yeah,
you
before you
schedule,
go on, when do we, a question just popped up in the chat. How do you define what makes an MQL, the criteria? Is it just an assumed target market persona?
good question. Okay. So I'm going to experience share. I'm going to share what I do so you can personalize it. An MQL. So when I do my list, I can do a list of all medical device manufacturers. Okay. That's my lead list. My MQLs, which are more likely to buy, ironically, are headed up by somebody who might be an immigrant from another country, because what we found is that people who are immigrants to the US aren't as afraid of going international as somebody who's grown up in the US and is afraid of different languages and cultures. Okay, so if I see they already have translation on their website, if I see that they've already applied for a CE mark, which is a safety regulatory thing that you need to sell medical devices in Europe, if I see them posting about international travel, these are all things that in my industry are kind of like signals to me that they may be more likely to buy translation, global marketing services, interpretation services. They don't become an SQL until we have some sort of conversation with them or interaction with them. Like it could all be on LinkedIn. Hey, I've got, I'm glad I saw your post recently because we're getting ready to translate our website. Can you help me out with this? I mark them as an SQL in my database, and I reach back out to them and I schedule that sales call. So see how you're narrowing to who's going to say yes. Okay, so SQLs, when you actually have a hot prospect on the phone, I want to know what I need to know from them to be able to provide a quote. Okay, so I could go in and say, all right, what do you need translated? You just need this document. Okay, we'll provide a quote for you and we'll get back to you. Well, we do a little bit more intake because I want to know how that document fits into what they're doing. So softball questions. How are you handling translation today? Oh, this is the first time we're doing it. Or, we've used internal folks or whatever. How's it working for you? Well, this is when they tell me their pain, because they have pain if they're talking to me. Otherwise, they'd keep doing what they were doing. All right. Now I set up the stage there then, and I go, look, whenever we're working with somebody, I want to understand what their strategy is, the process that they're using or they'd like to use, any technologies that are involved in this, and the quality that you're expecting. Okay. So I have my 4 little things that I always go through. So even if I don't have the script in front of me, I go, what's your strategy? So I want to know for that document, where are they going to be using it? And then I say, well, what are your expansion plans? What are your, so I'm talking all translation. I'm just giving you the framework that I use. You want to develop your own framework. And if you want to copy this, it's fine with me. But I want to know their strategy. Then their process is, do they have 1 or more people that could be requesting translation? Do they have something already set up? Do they want to have in-market people review the translations before we finalize them? We have 100% guarantee, but translations like writing, they may want to have their internal folks review it so they buy into it, or they have any edits they have. Technologies, if it's a website or a brochure, we need to know if we're going to do the layout or they are. And then the quality, there's times I'll say, yeah, you get incoming emails and you don't know what it's about. Pop it into Google Translate, get the gist. If it's just something that has nothing to do with you, delete. If, but if you're putting your website out there, you're putting a brochure, you're putting your CE marks out there, it has to be high quality. And then I do a little fishing for referrals. Are there any other departments that might use translation? Okay, and your goal here, as we were talking about, is determine next steps, whether they have to get information to me so I can quote it, whether I'm going to send them an article that I think they'd be interested in. So what is it that we're going to move along? Outline it, repeat it, and then add it to your CRM and a set of follow-up. Okay, the 3-to-1 rule. There are a lot of questions up here, and under as you saw under strategy, process, technologies, and qualities, there's a lot of sub questions that I'm going to zig and zag to ask. If you just keep asking questions, they're going to feel like they're going to be interrogated. And so there's a 3-to-1 rule in sales where you ask 3 questions and then you make one statement. Feel, felt, found, like I can understand how you feel. Our clients felt that way before they started working with us, yet they found that our project managers are so good that they want to work with us. So feel, felt, found is a little trick that I learned years ago. I don't remember it. What I'll do is when they say something, it'll trigger an education minute that I can give to them. And so you just kind of want to keep that in mind, like ask some questions, but then share some value so you're not just interrogating. Okay, I said the most important thing that you could do from a trade show was follow up. The most important thing that you can do with selling is follow up. So if it's a hot follow up for me, I put it right as a to-do in my calendar. If it's something like somebody says, yeah, we're going to be looking at it in 6 months, I set a task in HubSpot because I don't manage them to the day. I manage them to every couple of weeks. So if I have to be on time and it's important and it's a possible big deal, I put it right in my calendar. Okay, so follow up is where you're going to get the sales. All right, so how do you stay motivated? Because if you've developed a product and you're a business owner, it's drudgery to do sales. I love sales. I came from a background in sales. I love connecting with people, but I still have to motivate me to do the outreach. So here's some games I play. Does everybody remember the Price is Right? Just put in chat if you remember that. It's a game show that's on TV. And at one point you get to pick what's behind door number 1, door number 2, or door number 3. When I'm doing cold outreach, I kind of play around myself. Oh, is this going to be door number 1 where I get the big prize? Or is this going to be door number 3 where it goes, wah, wah? The game of life where you're moving along, moving along the funnel. What are the goals that I'm setting for my life? What are the different ways that I can go? And if I choose to do this sales right now, I know it's going to benefit me later on. Monopoly, you're building your little empire. So what are you rolling? New York Life Insurance, I did an interview years ago with them, and they had a nice sales structure that I like. Is that every morning before anybody followed up on all their other stuff, the salespeople had to get on the phone or do the outreach or do a networking event to schedule 2 SQLs a day. Because if you schedule 2 SQLs a day, then you're filling your pipeline every day in the future, you're going to have 2. So you never schedule from 8 to 10 or 10 to 12 or whatever hours you want to block off. You work on scheduling those. So that's your LinkedIn time if it's efficient, that's your telephone calling, that's your emailing, that's your doing everything in the MQL category to move it to SQL. And then one we came up with is luckily I'm in the position right now to have a BDR who's doing a lot of my MQL work. He was a former Alabama football player. I played for Penn State. I mean, I didn't play for Penn State. I went to Penn State and I was a huge fan. We played against Alabama, but his goal is to get me 8 SQL appointments per month. So we were talking and we were like, oh, so that means on the 1st of every month, you're starting at the 20-yard line and you're getting first downs every time you get an appointment. So by the time you hit the end of the month, if you've done 8 first downs, you've moved that 100 yards down the field. And I'm sorry if people aren't football fans, because then it won't make sense. But if you move down the field and past the goal line, you got a touchdown. So, that's kind of a little visual. So, you play cricket or you play, football or anything like that. You can build a visual like that for yourself, or the door number 1, door number 2. So there's all sorts of little emotional games to keep you motivated. If you can't keep yourself positively motivated, then just go to eat the frog. Every morning you got to eat the frog, which means do the worst thing you got to do in your day. If you think sales is the worst thing, then do that first thing in the morning, get it out of the way, and then you'll feel productive the rest of the day. This is one that I got for some business owners. I used to keep little frog stickers around. So if I had the worst thing that I was doing, I could remind myself to do it. Okay, so back to our example. Remember this? 6 is my number to get me to 50 sales this week. When you get to 6, reward yourself. Whatever it is to reward yourself, go buy that special coffee, ring a bell. A lot of sales teams will ring a bell. It's something to recognize, okay, I got my SQLs this week. Did I have a good week? So that's how you measure whether you're doing a good job in sales, because sales is the kind of thing that you could always be doing more and more and more of. And that's, as a business owner, you've got to know when you're doing enough. So reward yourself when you get there. Okay. All this stuff creates a process. You document the process, you document the scripts, you figure out how you're going to get the leads. You take this presentation, just put it, you customize it to your company, you document it, then you can hire for sales. And you don't want to hire for, break down the sales process. You need somebody who's going to find you leads, hire an offshore person for less money and say, I need these leads, buy Apollo and do searches, do LinkedIn Navigator. You can have somebody develop your lead list. Like I said, right now, I've got a BDR that's actually doing phone calls for me. So I can just come on and do the SQLs. That's where you want to be. Eventually, you want to have somebody that can head up this whole process and be doing the SQLs for you. So you create that momentum. So I've got a little thing on here. I don't know if you can see it. It says leaders build leaders. So, you want to get that process figured out and then build a sales leader. But one of the worst things you can do is go out and hire a salesperson right now, because to create all this for you, because they don't know how you're doing it. They don't have what's in your head. So use somebody to help you document the process, play around with the different things, and then get it documented. That's when you hire. Okay. I would be remiss if I do not tell you about thinking global. I wrote the book on the language of global marketing. I've talked about it. One of the biggest mistakes I see companies do this day, particularly technology companies, is that you're not building for a global audience. Once you build your product, and if it's a good thing, product or service, and you're offering it out there, people are finding you on the internet. So make sure that your programming can take different languages, different characters, and think global from the start. It's a huge mistake by not doing that. You don't have to go global now, but I could tell you stories, and we'll get to questions if you want to know. I could tell you stories of how people have gone global without trying. Second thing I want to talk to you about is access resources. The state and federal government have free resources out there to help companies go global. They will give you free consulting, and they will give you grants and fundraising. They'll give you grants to do translation. They'll help you with trade missions. We did a podcast interview with a guy who makes barbecue sauce in Atlanta. And there he was knocking his head, on the wall, trying to sell barbecue sauce against every other, person that was out there. He went on a trade mission to Saudi Arabia. He followed up, built a relationship. He got a $10 million, $1 million or 10 million. I forget. It was huge for him, but immediately exploded his company just because he accessed the trade resources that were out there. And then translate. Do not use Google Translate or AI for anything that can affect your revenue or your liability. I'm always happy to do a free consult with you on how to keep the costs down, but be the most effective. Here's my contact information. You can take a picture of this now. I also dropped my LinkedIn in there. If you go to the link tree, I love this site. If you haven't heard of it before, Linktree, it's the bottom link there. You can put all your links in there. So you can find my Instagram, my Facebook, my links to the book, links to the website, links to the free download of a couple chapters of the book. So if you don't have one, start one of those, because that's very handy. And then we have a bunch of resources here, the book, the podcast, the resource library. So that is it. I see there's some questions in chat. Let's see. Is it just an assume? So Terry, come on off mute. Did I answer your question about MQL?
Yeah, you did. Thank you so much.
Okay. Oh, I see your thank you. Check out Unsold Mindset, written by the USC Marshall instructors who teach sales mindset for entrepreneurs. That looks like another really good resource. I am not a member of the Translator Interpreter Associations. I am not, our company is, because we get our liability insurance through there. I don't use them as sales resources, but you know what? That might be an opportunity for us to do that, at least get our translators, interpreters to comment on our social media. If they do give us a lead, we follow up on it immediately and talk to the clients. Okay, so Amanda's autopilot.
She sent me a private message and said, you don't have to respond to her autopilot. She said she doesn't know how to get it to not do that. But basically, I mean, these kind of like AI assistants for Zoom are pretty good at summarizing big points. I'm actually pretty impressed at how useful they are, especially if you can't make a meeting. It's kind of nice.
Yeah,
I
no, I mean, develop a sales process documentation template. I mean, that's what I said. Research state and federal global marketing resources. If you want information on that, we have it on our website. Reach out to me. I'll connect you to the person in your state that can help you. It's probably if you're all over the place.
Yeah.
And then consider automating initial MQ outreach. Yeah, consider. Test. You're an engineer, you can test. Yeah, so I'll stop the share. Any other questions?
Let's give it a pause, see if anyone has.
I love questions.
So how do you get like past like the fear of, you know, approaching and like doing the sales and like advocating for your company and your brand? Because I understand, like me personally, it feels kind of nerve-wracking going up to people and like randomly like promoting.
Eunice,
how do you like change that mindset?
What's your business, or what do you
So
offer?
I have a business where it is basically a media content site, like a magazine, online website magazine, where I'm in the position of trying to promote, you know, getting funding in order to make it a real thing. Because right now it's in the MVP stage.
Okay,
But
and so you're trying to get people to advertise on it?
No, I'm trying to get you know, meetings with, I'm trying to structure it. So basically I'm trying to find people who are interested in like being a part of it. I'm trying to raise funding for it, raise capital for it. I'm also trying to find like writers who are interested in writing. So there's like different aspects of it that I'm trying to have, but the roadblock that since I'm a builder more than a salesperson, I'm trying to develop that sales muscle so I can advocate for it and build it on the business side.
Okay, so people in my company that that are the builders think of sales as a 4-letter word. And they're like, I'm not a salesperson. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
think of the best salesperson you have ever interacted with. They're usually friendly, smart. They don't talk and talk and talk at you. They're very curious about what you're doing. They want to be that happy, helpful human. So for me, when you're talking, I'm thinking, get that sales word out of your head. You want to be the builder, and to build it, you need to have all these people, like you're building a
Yeah.
team.
Yeah,
So think
exactly.
about building a team. You know, cheerleader came to mind too. Is like you're a cheerleader for this company. And so you also have a lot of personas that you're targeting. I would step back and I would say, who's the most important person?
Right now it's funding. Because yeah, right now it's funding. So I'm talking to like I've been cold emailing a bunch of like funders and like investors on LinkedIn and people who are interested in the field that I'm building. But it does feel very daunting. I do like the perspective that you just offered though, like that cheerleader mindset. But I do sometimes feel like, you know, Wolf of Wall Street, always be closing. And I'm like,
No,
that's
no, no,
not
no, no,
me.
no. No, you don't want to always be closing. You want to find the right person to close, because you're going to talk to a lot of funders, but you want to make sure that you have not just anyone's going to do. So what I would do is figure out where those people are, and then look at LinkedIn. Who do you know that's connected to them that might be able to give you an introduction, and leverage your network on there, because introductions to funders are going to be the most important. Cold outreach, they're not going to be as responsive to. So I would think about where are they hanging out, so you can casually say over coffee, you know, hey,
Yeah.
I've been wanting to meet you. I heard you do such and such. I've got something that I'd like to talk to you about. You know, and the same thing with getting an introduction, but I would really work on your elevator pitch too, because you've got like 2.5 seconds to get their attention.
Exactly.
Yeah, so go back and listen to the beginning, because I think that I talked about the elevator pitch before you hopped on, but get that elevator pitch tightened up, and then think who's in your network that you can build on your cheerleading squad to help introduce you to to those people.
Sounds good. Thank you. I didn't even think of like the introduction thing. I've just been cold emailing and I haven't been like getting a good response rate.
Yeah, you want to use your warm before you use your cold. Use your network.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Eunice,
Sure.
are you a student still, or?
Yeah, I'm a student. I am in the Ivan and Young Academy.
I would also say it's kind of a secret weapon to be a student and to be in relationship development mode, because people often have more of a desire to support students, especially
Yeah.
if you approach your connections as a student who's looking for practical advice or support.
Yes.
And let that be your entry point for relationship development. Sometimes your best investors start off as mentors because you are earnest and you're trying to do something difficult and you're young, and they are compelled to help you get through that first little developmental stage, maybe not with their money, but with their experience. And if you prove yourself in that time period to be the right person to do the things that they tell you to do, that is typically what gets them to then start to take that venture risk with you. And so while you're a student, take advantage, because once you're out of school, it's a lot harder to kind of make your way into relationships in that way.
Yeah, the other
Thank
thing
you
that I
so
would
much.
do is go to the business school at your university and talk to like the dean's assistant and say, look, I'm trying to do this. Can you tell me who, or introduce me to the professor that might be most connected to the investors that might be interested in my product?
Wow, I didn't even think of that. That's actually a really good idea.
Yeah,
I'm
that
gonna do that. I'm
assistant
actually
to
gonna do that.
the assistant to the dean knows everything and everybody.
And Lori said also check out the Unsold Mindset, which addresses this. Wendy,
Is it a book?
it's a book.
Okay.
It's in the chat.
It's in the chat.
Okay.
Wendy, I appreciate you so much for being here. This has been such a great breakdown. In fact, like it's really inspiring. Like I don't oftentimes think about the people that I am interacting with routinely in a very structured and organized way, but I feel like this process is so applicable for a lot of different kind of lead inbound lead organizations and relationship development, and also learning a little bit about how to goal set, right? I mean, I felt like a good portion of it is that bottom up approach to create effective goals that you can then be able to measure throughout your week and see if you're achieving. I was wondering, because I get so inspired when it comes to things like this. I was wondering what your thought is on, for the teams in the garage, for me to maybe make like a sales wall so that they can set their goals and we can all see each other's kind of metrics grow.
Yeah.
Or do you think that that's too much pressure? Like, because I know that there's a level of accountability. That gamification process is a way of kind of like reinforcing, so you get to see it and you get to like applaud yourself. But at the same time, you, if you're not achieving, it could maybe be a little bit of a, it could, you know, affect your motivation as a group in a community. What do you think?
Well, I mean, sales teams will do that. If you're managing a sales team, you're putting it out there because that's how you're measuring whether someone's successful or not. And you have to work with each company is going to have a different number that they're going off of, and they have to see whether, you know, like I said, when I was selling to the attorneys, I knew it was office visits, 8 to 10 a day, or 8 to 12 a day. Now I know it's so many SQL appointments a week. And so if you can get everybody to get to their number and break it down by the end of the week, then yeah, do a little celebration thing for anybody who hits it, a little gamification and playing. And it's the old thing, goal setting. If you tell people that you're going to do it, you're more apt to do it. And people can then share how they're doing each stage. Because if somebody, you know, changes their percentages, they're closing more, or they're getting more SQL meetings, or, you know, they're doing something, they're sharing information about it. Or, you know, you can even go to the point of, you know, from 9 to 10, like I worked with some other business owners, and we'd set up once a week an hour call, 9 to 10 or 3 to 4 or whatever it is. We would be on a Zoom call together, but we'd do our smiling and dialing to the people that we needed to. And then, you know, if we got some hits, we'd compliment each other. So it's, you know, figuring out what that number is and then how to gamify it, but build consensus, pull the people together and say, hey, how do we want to motivate and celebrate?
It's so great. We are almost 10 minutes over time. I want to respect your time and just thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Is there like maybe parting words for those out there who think of sales as a 4-letter word, something that they can, you know, something that you can say to help them feel better about the fact that it's hard. It is a very hard part of the startup process.
It's very hard. And I can remember that at the very beginning of my company, I bought the company, but I was still responsible for sales. I went out to 2 networking events a week because that's what got me out. And then I could figure out what it was. And, you know, read the book, you, me, you. But you're not going to grow a successful company if you're not doing the sales. And if you're not making the time to do the sales, you're not going to get to where you want to be. So, you know, figure out what motivates you. I mean, for me, it was The Price is Right. What's behind door number 1, 2, or 3? You know, I never knew who the next person was going to be and when I was going to get a sale. So figure out what motivates you and then lead on that.
That's great advice. Thank you so much, Wendy. I hope to have you again on an Oceanside chat. Have a great
My
afternoon.
pleasure. Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody. See you at the next one.
Bye-bye.